Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means. The other ones are just taking the night off. We are slowly getting into things through our semesters, our years, our spring training is right around the corner of life, and we're okay. We're figuring it out. We're starting to ramp up for some things at the end of this week. Starting next week is our big pods all going through it. So we'll be all right. But before we get into all that, before we get into all of it, let's talk. What are we talking about today? Brenton Doyle. Should we extend him or not? KB, there's a plan. And who are the ones in the Colorado Rockies 2025 roster that will be able to get 20 plus home runs or not? Tune around, whatever. Quick intro. I'm working on this. Bear with me.
How about that Ezekiel Tovar?
Thank you, Mike. Mike was in the lab, created a new intro. We'll work on those dimensions. So if you're listening, big dog, go ahead and fix that. But I love what he is able to do on his own time, free time, figuring it out. So thank you for that great intro. Let's get into the Rockies talk. Banter starts now. First, actually, it doesn't start now. I'm all over the place. Bear with me. Austin Gomber is at spring training, and the Rockies were able to share an interview that he had with Thomas Harding, asking all the questions. I thought it was really interesting, especially his talk about the lab. He talks a little bit about pitching at altitude and what made last year so successful for him. So I have that clip ready to go. Let you listen to it for the next minute or so. Just Austin Gomber on the pitching lab and what has us all excited over at Blake Street Banter, especially Tyler. Tyler loves the pitching lab, and it seems to be working. So here's Austin Gomber on the lab.
One more from me. Last year, I think we talked, you had gone into the lab, kind of learned some things about yourself. What were the things that you learned about yourself, your motion, and everything else that carried you through the year?
Yeah, I think understanding the body, I think for me it was big, just the stuff in between starts, the way I run, the way I lift, the stuff that we do in the training room, understanding, just finding ways to make sure the back stayed good. And then on that, it's just trying to add shoulder strength, keep the shoulder healthy. It just, like I said, experience, I think going through it, being able to go through a whole year now, I understand kind of what it feels like, the peaks and valleys, what it's going to take, and kind of the process that works for me, right? I did, laid a foundation last year, got through the season, and then just trying to tweak some stuff to, be even stronger this year. But just the ability that I've done it now and the confidence that I've done it, and I think it's huge.
And I think that speaks volumes for what the Rockies are trying to do, right? The pitching has been atrocious. It's hard to pitch at altitude, but it looks like they're figuring something out. You had Ryan Feltner and Austin Gomber both go 30 plus starts last year, and thanks to the lab and working on the science behind it. How do you keep an Austin Gomber healthy throughout the season? How does he get enough innings to be a productive starting pitching? Like it's not the easiest thing. So shout out to the lab, shout out to Austin Gomber, and shout out to the Rockies for sharing that little intro to spring training conversation there. He had some other things to talk about being the future, being a good teammate, pitching on altitude, but I'm going to play the Gomber on the future and just what he can do to support the boys, Dollander, Palmquist, Soli, so to speak, this season.
But if we can't compete this year, I still would like to be able to contribute to winning for the Rockies somehow, and maybe that wasn't on the field as a player here, but maybe it's, chaperoning guys like Chase Dollander and Palmquist and the other young pitchers and to helping them have success, but just finding a way to contribute something to winning in the Colorado Rockies organization while I'm here is important to me.
So finding value, whether you're pitching, whether you're on the mound, whether you're in the dugout, in the barn at spring training, finding yourself and working through what you have to set up the success for the next round of arms. And I think that's big for Austin Gomber. I don't know if that necessarily was part of his thought process 2 years ago when he was battling the demons of living up to the trade, the Nolan trade and all that. So I think that's a very mature outlook for Austin Gomber. Combine that with the lab, I think we have a pretty solid dude in the rotation that can just be productive and help us get to the next level. So again, I like what Austin Gomber's saying. It seems authentic. It seems real. And so living up to that and going forward is kind of exciting, seeing what he can bring to the table there. So let's get Brenton Doyle. So should they extend him or not? And it's the conversations that are around Rockies Nation. Patrick Saunders posted in the Denver Post, I think early this week, about there are behind the scenes talks with Brenton Doyle and his group of people about possibly an extension. And then it comes to, well, should they actually do it? And the lovable fan that I am, and then Brenton Doyle be one of the most exciting baseball players in all of baseball, I absolutely 100% say yes, because like, why not? But from a team standpoint, like, he's under arbitration for another 5 more years, something crazy like that. So he's under team control. So like, why as a team do you want to pay this man extra money going forward? How does that look? He is in his age 27 season. How does that look? How does speed? How does athleticism in Coors at altitude and center? How does that age? I have no idea. But I think there's a middle ground. There is something that can be worked around, can be played around with. I'm going back to my Tigers roots, and Detroit Tigers extended Colt Keith. Jackson Churio, I believe, got an extension before he made his major league debut. Like, teams are getting crafty with these extensions to avoid the money later. And if you're looking at Brenton Doyle, if he continues this trajectory, if he can be another 25 guy, he gives you an WRC plus of 100 or more, which he was at 97 last year, for one more year, that value is going to keep going because it's showing that he can sustain that and go through that, right? So at what point do the arbitration numbers stop making sense to hold on to Brenton Doyle? We let Brendan Rodgers go for a $5 million mark this year. There's that arbitration conversation where it becomes messy and it's becoming a difficult conversation. So like, hey, you're bringing me down so you can pay me less, and that doesn't really feel good. And so like, why would I even want to come here? That kind of thing. It's kind of gross to think about. So should they extend him? I don't know. So I was looking at the research with like my 3 minutes of free time today, and I came up with Dexter Fowler as a comparable Colorado Rocky in the past, right? Center fielder, athletic, was able to man the outfield. Like, how well did he do, right? So I'm looking at Dexter Fowler in his age 27 season. Granted, Dexter Fowler's already had 4 full seasons in Colorado by this point. 2 with 100 plus WRC plus in there already, but we're just kind of looking at his age 27 season. What could we possibly get from Brenton Doyle in his age 27? And their numbers are pretty similar. Dexter Fowler walked a little bit more. So his age 27 season, right? He had 12 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 42 RBIs, and 71 runs. Played a decent defense, had ISO around 145, his walk rate 13%, and his strikeout rate was around 21%, right? Put that in perspective to Brenton Doyle's age 26 season last year, 7% walk rate, 25% K rate, so a little fluctuating there, but his ISO was around 186, had a 97 WRC plus with a 30 stolen bases, 23 home runs, and 72 RBIs. So similar in almost being the same offensive profile, right? Speed, a little bit more power with Brenton Doyle than Dexter Fowler. Dexter Fowler had a higher WRC plus than Brenton Doyle at that age. But what happened to Dexter Fowler after that, right? Obviously, arbitration wasn't in the cards. 5 years, probably. I don't know how they ended up there right now, forgetting how they ended their time together, Colorado and Dexter, but he ended up going to Houston, the Chicago Cubs for 2 years, St. Louis for 4 more years, and all that. So like, once Dexter Fowler got out of Colorado, how did he fare? 126, 109, 129, 122, 63 in 2018, 103 WRC plus. So once he got to his early 30s, he was still a productive batter. 100 WRC plus. He still played 150 games in 2019. He played half the games in 2020 that he was able to. And then 2021, he just called it quits because it just wasn't working, right? His defensive WAR in that time, though, in St. Louis, a negative 13.9, according to Fangraphs, and a negative 10.5. So his defense regressed tremendously. But if you look at his time in Houston, it wasn't that great then either. So I guess, what are we looking at? What am I trying to do here? I have absolutely no idea. I'm a kind of rambler all over the place. I think it would be okay to extend a Dexter Fowler. I think it is okay to extend a Brenton Doyle because you have a little bit more pop that's going to age well. It's going to age better than what Dexter Fowler was able to profile, right? You're going to be able to get a few stolen bases here and there. You're still going to get a center fielder for the next 3-4 years that's going to be above league average. And then as soon as that time's up, you move him over to right field. He's the grizzled vet. He's the Chuck Blackman of the team. You have this homegrown talent that everybody seems to love right now. Why not spend a little extra millions of dollars to lock him up for a little bit longer than this arbitration? Like, are we all going to be mad if we have Dexter or Brenton Doyle in our lives for 6 confirmed seasons at whatever the clip might be, $7 million a year? If you're looking at some of the numbers like Jaron Duran, I think it was like $6 million right now. There's the outfielder Tommy Edman. He's getting paid in Los Angeles Dodgers, but the Dodgers pay everybody. He's getting like 17 million. He's the highest outfielder out there, center fielder. And I don't even know if I would put him over Brenton Doyle. So it's like, sure, age isn't on his side, right? But I think with his profile, the argument is that his speed is going to dwindle, his athleticism is going to dwindle, his defense is going to dwindle. So why would you want to lock that up and pay him that much? Fair arguments. However, he has a little bit more power than your normal outfielder. He has the ability to play an above average defensive center field, which means he has to transfer to a right field and be an above average in right field, like down the line. Speed doesn't quite die like it used to 10, 15 years ago. The way Brenton Doyle is built and like the Superman physique that this man has, he's chiseled out of the lab. I believe he is able to sustain this athleticism that we all know and love right now. I think the Rockies would almost do a disservice if they weren't able to extend him and just avoid arbitration for the next 4 or 5 years. Make fans happy now. Try to get past the Kris Bryant signing. Try to get past this Rockies optics if you tuned in last week. And have a good faith. We are all stoked when they signed Tovar last year. I think that's going to age just fine. I think if we do that again with the Brenton Doyle and you're locking up these 2 mainstays, I think we're okay, right? The Tovar extension was last year for 7 years, 64 million, 74 million, something like that. So he's got 6 more years left on it. Sean, thank you for hanging out. Sean in the chat, YouTube chat, I say sign him. It's a sign of good faith. Plus, you don't need to worry about arbitration. Keep your young cats happy and the vibes high, right? Like, then you're not going outside and trying to sign these free agents. You're not trying to sign the next Kris Bryant, so to speak. You already have a Brenton Doyle, the Chuck for the next generation, so to speak. And I think that's okay. I don't think I'm mad about that. I know the pitchers aren't going to be mad about that. I think we're okay if that extension talk turns into more than arbitration, right? Another person that came into mind with comps was Torrey Hunter. Big defensive outfielder, had a little bit of bat to him. He had a little bit more ability to drive in runs than Brenton Doyle without the stolen bases. But if you look at his age 26 season, so to speak, he was in the league for 3 years before that. 29 homers, 23 stolen bases, 94 RBIs, 122 WRC plus with a 5 defensive rating. The next few years in Minnesota, all about the same. 106, 108, 113, 116. Defense was right around 0. Nothing. It had an 18 defensive WAR in one point, but then 2, 6, -6, -8. Like, the defense dropped a little bit, but the offensive production was there. I really think if you have Brenton Doyle do what he did last year, which all signs point to yes, he can, I think you're okay with that extension, right? The good faith, keep the vibes high, I think is super important. So yes, should they extend him? I believe so. Doesn't make a lot of sense for the team. Not really, but you're also showing faith into a young guy that you grew, homegrown, showing that you're draft and development team organization. Let's do this. Let's go have that, right? Unless Sean in the chat, unless they want to see Zach Veen in purple before they make a call like this. And that's not a bad argument, right? Like you have Zach Veen, you have all these young guys in the outfield are ready to go. Like, what does Jordan Beck bring to the table? He was the compensation pick for what, John Gray or Trevor Story, one of those two. So like you kind of want to see if, hey, we didn't trade those guys, so we have this draft pick and we want him to really work out. So is he able to fill in? You have Zach Veen, who's never going to be a center fielder, but has the ability to hit like crazy at the major league level. What does this Benny Montgomery show you? Like, is he really the truth? Cole Carrick, is he going to push the envelope where you don't necessarily need Brenton Doyle to stick around a little bit because you have Brenton Doyle 2.0 right behind him? And if you can just keep that factory going as a team, why do you extend him? I hate that. Like, it doesn't make sense. As a fan, I want to see my favorite player for a long time. That's why we all love Chuck Nasty. That's why we all love Todd Helton. That's why we were all mad when Nolan Arenado left after the extension. And I don't think Brenton Doyle has that same mentality as Nolan Arenado. You can take that how you think I'm saying that. But before, so yes, sign him. That's in that conversation. What's next? I want to give a shout out to a review. So thank you. If you are listening on the Apple podcast or the Spotify podcast, feel free to leave us a review. It does help us grow. It does help us be a little bit better and allow us to do a little bit more things for you all. Go ahead and share it with your mama. Again, as always, we are your mama's favorite podcast. She just doesn't know it yet. But this is from Nolan on Apple. Thank you, Nolan, for doing it from a few days ago. Love these guys. Let's be honest. It is not easy or fun to be passionate about the Rockies. Sure, Coors Field is just a gigantic bar where over half the crowd won't even know the final score as they walk out. But for us baseball diehards, they had the luck of becoming a Rockies fan. It's funny. This is your podcast. Nice guys. They'll answer your questions, interact with you on social media, and they have a knowledge and passion for the game, for the team. Keep it up, boys. Appreciate Nolan. Obviously, the brain trust gets a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger when I have my colleagues with me on this. Definitely on the show tomorrow, Best of the West with Skylar and Kenneth. And we're going to start bringing in our normal Blake Street banter gurus. Noah's going to be back next week soon. Me and Tyler are going to be doing Road to the Blake Street once a week starting next week. We got Best of the West going on. We have a lot happening. The writing's going to be hitting. We have a huge MILB tools package happening this week, starting on Friday up until the first game of spring training. We're going to release a tools article of top power hitters in the system, top contact hitters, top fastball, top breaking ball, all of the details that only Luke, Isaac, Tyler, all these guys can do in the background. And we're turning that into YouTube specific content. So if you aren't subscribed to our YouTube, do that. Make sure you're checking out Blake Street Banter for those. Some names that you might not have thought about that are going to be standing out to you this year going forward in 2025. So be on the lookout for it. Wildly Innocent, are you going to Scottsdale? I will not be there. We are not privileged enough to get boots on the ground out there just because all of our lives are where they are in this moment where we have to be. I have my family up here. Noah's doing his thing at school in Indiana. So spring training, not a luxury for us at this moment in Blake Street Banter's time, but hopefully soon as we grow this, we can have some boots on the ground at spring training. But we are getting content from the Rockies.com, Rockies organization, front office, PR team. So the Austin Gomber thing you saw at the beginning, we will be having those kind of things, share some stuff that we're seeing and just some chatter that we hear from our sources. Next up, there's a plan for KB, which is surprising, which I don't know if I necessarily like. I don't know. I need you all to bear with me as we kind of work through this together. But in Thomas Harding's MLB.com article the other day, it was what to look for the opening day lineup and possibly 3 catchers. It had, who your first baseman is, Michael Tolio. Know who your second baseman, Tyro Estrada, blah, 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 right? The interesting part to me was the outfield, right? You have your Nolan Jones, you have Brenton Doyle, and then listed on the outfield was Kris Bryant. Red flag number 1, right? Why are we putting out Kris Bryant out there already? We saw him try that last year. He was ball to the wall. He did his best that he could, just ran into the wall. He extended his back a little bit too much. We're putting him in situations where he's getting hurt with the fragile state that his body is. I mean that with all the love, KB, if you are listening or if your mama's listening. It's it just doesn't seem that he is in a place to go out there and be in the field at altitude at all times, running around. First base was the place where he was supposed to be at. We found a Michael Tolia to do that, who is much better at first base than right field. So we're kind of figuring out what to do with KB, right? You're paying him millions of dollars. You need him to play it out. Bud Black has mentioned a few times, like KB needs to be KB, and we need him to step up and do his thing. And that's where the plan came into play. We have a plan for him going into the season. They've been working with him in Vegas about a plan to get healthy, get strengthened up, hopefully similar to the pitching lab, like Austin Gomber. Like, hey, this is where you're weak at, so to speak. Let's strengthen this up so we can throw you out there. And so the plan is, which again, if you're in the chat, if you're listening, if you're listening to this Thursday or Friday, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll follow up. Is for KB to play in the outfield on the road and DH at home to save energy, to keep him healthy so he's not out there every single day. And then Jordan Beck was listed in Thomas Harding's MLB.com article as the DH. Same idea, just doing the opposite of what KB was doing. So KB's on the road in the outfield. That means Jordan Beck's in the outfield at home. Vice versa, DH, et cetera, et cetera. Red flag right off the bat. Sounds weird. Why isn't Jordan Beck the starting right fielder? Why isn't KB the DH? Why not just put him in there? Like, I don't. He's hurt all the time. He's fragile. You don't know what he's going to be. You need him to play 80 plus games this year. You need to vouch for this contract in some way, somehow. So you can't put him in situations where he's going to get hurt. That's just my initial reaction, right? So it's almost like the Rockies are trying to prove to us, the fans themselves, like, hey, we signed KB. We had this plan going forward. This is what the plan has to be. We need KB to be out in the outfield somehow, some way, somewhere in the field so he has more value, quote unquote. Can't just be paying $128 million over 7 years for a DH, which is wild to me because you're paying that no matter what. So why not try to get the most production out of that spot wherever you can get that spot from? A healthy KB as a DH seems a lot more valuable than a hurt KB playing the outfield for 40 games before he hurt something. And it just seems like you're testing the waters to, I don't know, push the limits to see if you were right with this plan in the offseason. I don't know. It just seems goofy. I don't understand why Jordan Beck just isn't slotted as the starting right fielder right away. He's young. He's athletic. He can handle it. So why aren't we doing that? Granted, Jordan Beck is also coming off an injury. I know he's doing baseball activities, right? There's no way he isn't. But like, he's coming off an injury. So maybe they're trying to combine the two to play it slow for these injury-based fellas, KB and Jordan Beck. Could be an option. Maybe they are seeing what they have in both of them, seeing if they can both play defense and offense or not, and then throw in Zach Veen. Maybe it's a revolving door out in right field and DH with Yanquiel Fernandez. Like, all right, this KB experiment just really isn't working. He's not able to play the outfield at a productive rate. He's not able to hit. So let's cut him. Or he is valuable in the outfield. He can do it. So we don't need to do this. And maybe we start trading some of these prospects that are knocking at the door. There's a plan for KB, but the plan doesn't necessarily make sense without the behind the scenes information. Like, what are they really trying to hope from KB? I feel like it is a make or break year for him with what we're hearing from Bud Black, with what we're hearing from the plan. Like, they need him to be out there, and that's what they need to vouch. They need to show themselves that this wasn't the worst contract ever, and they're going to try to prove it or not prove it. That's where we're at. You have so many outfielders in the wings ready to go. So let's figure out what we have in KB so we can figure out what we have down below. It's a weird move. I don't think I necessarily agree with it. But again, I trust people are always smarter than I am wherever they are. I'm going to trust the brass and see where that comes with. But if it doesn't work out, you heard it here first. We called it. But you also probably did too. The armchair analysis is live and well for all of us. And then last but not least, I thought it was kind of fun on our Twitter, on our X, on the Where Everything Happens app. We posted a poll. Who how many players for the Colorado Rockies hit 20 plus home runs? Is it 2, 3, 4, or 5? And 6 hours in, 10 hours in, there's 190 votes, which is pretty cool. Us little BSB over on the X is 190 here. The results are in. The results: 2, 21%, 3, 38%, 4, 24%, 5 plus 15%. Kind of a nice little bell curve, which I love to see. The 38%, 40% of them being 3 or higher, or just 3, and then 4 being the next highest, which is kind of exciting, which makes it hard to believe that the Rockies are going to lose 100 plus games because we have 4 guys that can potentially hit 20 plus home runs. We have a full pitching staff with 3 guys on the wings. We have a arm barring that we all love. So it's very interesting that we are being projected to lose 100 games, but like it makes sense because we lost 100 games last year and we didn't really add that much. So we're all hoping on the future to carry us into less than 100 losses. But I digress. The 20 plus home runs, right? Obviously the 3. If you're listening, go ahead and put it in there. Go ahead and say it to yourself. I'll stop talking. All right. So you have your thoughts, right? You said Tovar. Nice job. You said Brenton Doyle. Nice job. And you said Michael Tolio. Nice job. Those are the 3 like hands. High five your brother next to you. High five your mama. 20 plus. Yes. These 3 for sure. Who's the 4th? Who can be the 4th person? Like there's talk about Tyro Estrada. We need him to be a 15, 25 guy. Needs stolen bases and needs some pop from him. Be interested to see what he can do in Coors Field at altitude. Don't think he gets the 20 though. Ryan McMahon has the ability to hit 20 plus. Is his streakiness going to get in the way? Is he going to be working on some things where he's not going to be able to add that power? You have Nolan Jones, who we have no idea who Nolan Jones is. Is he the 2023 version where he just absolutely demolished? Which, me personally, I think that was his top of the top ceiling. That was the dome peak, the little peak of the dome, Nolan Jones ceiling that we had. But that doesn't mean that it can't drop a little bit, and he still is going to be productive in a 160 game season. So you have potential over there on the left side at third base and in left field. Right field, Jordan Beck, easily a 20 potential dude, right? Does he get enough playing time? Is he going to be able to do that? KB, healthy KB, maybe gets you 15, 20. Debatable, right? If Zach Dean's playing 160 games, I would put money down responsibly that he gets a 20 plus home runs. Don't think he makes camp out of spring training. I would put Yankeel Fernandez 40 bombs easily. So the question is, who is the 4th guy to get 20 plus? And I think I'm with Wild the Innocent. Again, thank you for hanging out in the chat. And no, it's not the best pod out there this time around, but you bearing with me here and being my friend is kind. Thank you. It's the return of Nojo, as Wild the Innocent says. I think it is. The question was, can you have I put this on my personal Twitter, can you have a bounce back season, or can you have a breakout season if you already broke out in 2023? So like, what does a breakout season for Nojo look like in 2025? I think it's a 2020 season, and you hit 280, 270, 280 with 20 bombs, 20 stolen bases. I think that's a breakout for Nolan Jones. And then you're kind of solidifying your 2 of your 3 outfield spots, which would be fantastic. But I don't know, it's just hard. Like, I think you are guaranteed 3 players in 20 plus. But there is the potential of 5 guys hitting 20 homers, where in years ago, we didn't have 1 guy hit over 20. So that trajectory is great. Granted, the strikeouts are another issue, but that's not what this is about. It's about the dongs that we can have in 2025. Sean, again, thank you for hanging out. Go Goats, right? I think KB can do it. I think he's in the right headspace coming into 2025. I would like to think so too. We haven't seen him. This is the whole conspiracy theory. Where was he? Why wasn't he at Rock Fest? Why isn't he out and about with his colleagues, so to speak, and being part of the squad? I know it rubs the fans the wrong way when we have our highest paid player isn't showing up and being the face of the franchise, kind of like what we signed him to be. Whatever. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. Don't need KB to be giving me cliches on a mic to feel like he's part of the squad. But I like the idea, Sean. If KB can do it, healthy KB, right headspace, I believe 162 game DH KB gets 20 hands down. Do we see KB enough to get 20 is the real question, right? Leo, already can tell by the meme it's going to be ridiculous, but I'm here for it. I'm going to read it now. Elias gets to come back and fix himself, and he breaks Bond's record. Let me know. Next, my fault, a little troll that's on me. Didn't see that before I read it. Eularis, hopefully he dominates over in, I think he's in Japan, right? Japan, Korea. I think he's in Japan. He's going to dominate. He's going to have 40 bombs over there, do his own Eric Thames impression, and then just come back and have a resurrection in the major league. Hopefully not with the Colorado Rockies. I think that ship has sailed. Hopefully he goes and does it for a contender that can win a championship, because I think Eularis Montero is a fantastic ball player. We just kind of broke him. So yeah, who do you think? Who do you think is those 4 or 5? Who's the 6th possible guy? Like which rookie? Which Zach V, Yankiel Fernandez? Could Greg Jones be a guy that gets you 20 home runs if you needed to? Do we get a combined 20 plus from any of the rookies? I think that's really fun. There's a lot to be excited about. A lot of things to watch for this season, which I'm excited. While the innocent, I don't think I want KB torquing his back in for a home run power just to drop some into the vastness of Coors. Just drop, right. Give me those doubles. Just put it in there, round first at a jog, and get to second instead of overpowering it. But he's going to be stronger. He's going to be better. He's going to be here for 80 plus games and 105 plus games. There's my prediction for KB, and we'll be okay. So yeah, go ahead. If you're listening, give me your thoughts. Give me your ideas. A little bit of a ramble with Aaron tonight. I'm exhausted. Life is kind of kicking my butt here too. So didn't want to leave you all hanging though. So Wild Innocent, thank you hanging out. Sean, always appreciate you being in the chat. Leo, don't know you yet, but thank you for coming in and trolling, right? Love it. Honest take here. Leo, Romo, Stallings combined for 20 home runs. Yes. You have Hunter Goodman, your mom's favorite player, who could hit 20 if you had consistent playing time. So what are we up to? 6 guys that could possibly get you 20 home runs? 180 home runs for Rockies players. That'd be pretty dope. I think we're here for it. I think it'd be okay. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube. Go ahead and put on automatic downloads on the podcast. Go ahead and follow us on all the socials, on the Instagram, on the Twitter, on the Blue Sky, all the good stuff. Check out BlakeStreetBanter.com and get excited for our first ever BSB Tools Week starting on Friday on the YouTube, on the BlakeStreetBanter.com, and just have fun with us. That's all we're here for. Here for the banter, here for the good times. And as always, you know how it goes. Go Rox. Woo!